You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show podcast powered by the Sportsbook at Golden Moon Casino at the Pearl River Resort. To get in on the action, visit Golden Moon Casino today.
Pickens Jackson.
Are you ready?
Now live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
Listening to
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show, The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9. The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome in the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by the New York Strip. Let's go with the side of bacon wrapped shrimp. Glass of Four Roses small batch bourbon. Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. Visit KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. Good morning. Welcome in. So guess what the #1 podcast was yesterday for us? Our Cracker Barrel segment. Yep.
Makes sense.
So
it's the one I prepared for most my whole life.
Just wanted to let you know that when you go to Apple Podcasts and you search the Out of Bounds Show, there is a podcast on there that just says Cracker Barrel. You can go back and hit it. And as one of our listeners said, Cracker Barrel is an upscale Waffle House. You agree or disagree? Mississippi Ag John Deere Tractor text line 601-885-3776. 885-3776. Twitter handle at Bo Bounds. Brought to you by our friends at Juniker Jewelry Store. Guys, don't screw it up. They'll make it easy for you. If you're in the market for an engagement wedding ring, go to Juniker Jewelry Store, Highland Colony in Madison. John and the team will take care of you. And then the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line is 601-707-3750. We'll have Steve Palazzolo on. Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. Palazzolo will join us at 8:30 on the Modelo guest line. And then Terry Powell will stop by and we'll have some fun. Talk food and beverage and Mississippi State baseball. He's one of the owners of Two Brothers Smoked Meats in the historic Cotton District, where you can smash some wings and some street tacos at Two Brothers. Celebrate that celebration that they posted on Twitter and I guess Facebook and so on was absolutely off the chains, even for Blake Scott.
Yeah, they had a good time.
Yeah,
they had a good time.
They did have a good time.
Yes, I like. That's one of the fun things I've enjoyed about. I mean, anytime you win a big game, it's awesome. But like getting to see how everyone else reacts is a fun part of it now. That we get to share that. 10 years ago you couldn't do stuff like that. So
no, that's true.
So it's kind of a cool, unique part of it.
That Will Bednar, Landon Sims video that they did is hilarious. First of all, neither one of them says anything.
Nope.
And it's Landon Sims comes off. I think he's a character.
He's got some swag to him.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And here's what's interesting. We talked so much about Jake Mangum's presence, and Tanner Allen was able to fill that void, if you will. That is rare in college sports. We've had really, really, really top-notch, good, sometimes great players go through a program in Starkville or Oxford, and you think you're going to get another one, and you don't for like sometimes years and years and years. Now that Tanner had that kind of stuff about him and did what he did this year and was the National Player of the Year, not just the SEC Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Tanner Allen was the National Player of the Year. That's like, big time last time I checked.
Yeah. That means you got it.
Now you sit there and go, wow, who is there another dude with dude qualities on the team? Because that is tough. I mean, the Jake Mangum shadow was enough, but then Tanner Allen has this kind of I don't give a damn factor to him. Let's just go. Let's roll the ball out on the field anywhere, anytime, and let's go.
You want it, come get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that I can beat you in sandlot baseball, or if you actually want to bring in umpires, we'll do that. It's a real game. I mean, that's just the guy that believes. And, that is virtually impossible to go back-to-back with them, Jake Mangum, Tanner Allen. I don't think it will happen, but I didn't think it would happen that Tanner would be able to even come close to, filling those shoes, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I think Landon Sims is a character.
Yeah, I think that's born
part
out of like when you're that dominant in high school, it gives you a little swagger, but also his role all season is the closer. Like he really filled that well. You know what I mean? Because you don't want your closer to be anything other than a little psychopathic. That's kind of the best mix of it. Whether it's Holder coming out with like the long greasy hair and the beard or the goatee or whatever and throwing hammer curves, or it's Ole Miss having like Broadway or whoever come out of the bullpen muttering to themselves on the mound.
Yeah.
Or Landon Sims just with the overhang Craig Kimbrell look, and just, I mean, you want your closer to have
a lot of times
attitude.
his hat is not even on right.
It's always cocked to the side.
Okay,
yeah.
and it's like he just got out of a bar brawl in the bullpen, and he's ready to pitch 95 miles per hour, right? It's just that's the guy.
Yeah.
Who's
you want Kenny Powers vibes out of your closer a lot of times.
And that's what he gave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little bit of I don't care, I'll go back to jail, it's just a night.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I've slept in worse places.
It was just an MIP. I'm not real worried about it.
Yeah. Guy was asking for it. I had to hit him. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so you want a little bit of that. I think that's what allows you to get through the grind of winning a regional, winning a super regional, and then winning another regional and super regional in Omaha. Because that's what it is. Like you said, it's multiple stages, and you got to get through like 4 or 5 of them just to win that natty. So
Hunter says that Sims is State's Ricky Vaughn.
Yeah, he had a little bit of that. Yeah. 100%.
I have a friend in Atlanta who said that Landon Sims had a cult-like following even back there because of how dominant he was as a 10th, 11th, and 12th grader in Atlanta baseball.
Facing that in high school? Are you kidding me?
No.
I'd have watched one pitch. I'd have stepped out. I'd have looked at my dugout and been like, "What do you want? Like,
yeah,
can I just sit down, or like, are we gonna do we have to throw all 3 pitches? Like, that's incredible."
I tell you what, he's got a lot to live up to. Almost,
but
impossible.
The whole team does.
Yeah,
and that's the whole point of what we said is like, it's great and all when you had to win one, right? You can't just go into perpetuity not winning a title, but once you win the title, then it turns into now you're the hunted, not the huntee. And so Mississippi State's never had to have that conversation heading into a season.
Hunter decided to send us a picture of Ricky Vaughn, who is Charlie Sheen, grabbing his crotch.
Yes, electric. Sleeveless, by the way, on the mound.
Sleeveless
on the mound.
See, I can see Landon Sims practicing during the week in a sleeveless shirt.
Pitching in a sleeveless shirt with sunglasses on.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, and Foxhall actually just not even say anything about it.
Yeah, because what are you going to do?
Right. I mean, you're a little off center, which makes you who you are.
Yep.
And so if you need that vibe on your bullpen day, buddy, you go ahead and just
it's just like Tanner Allen and Rowdy wearing like short shorts basically all year. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where, hey, if you're winning, you kind of get to write the rules. So good on them.
Oh, I forgot about that picture. Charlie Sheen, who was Ricky Vaughn, in a sleeveless shirt. And that was before Charlie Sheen lost his mind. Was that movie Major League?
That's right. 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, God.
Electric series.
All we needed was 1, by the way. Live in the Bank Plus studio. Bank Plus, it's more than a name, it's a promise. The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, is brought to you by Went McGee, the Mortgage Man. He'll shop the best rates for you, mortgagemanms.com. And it is also presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue. the official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds show. Palazzolo at 8:30 on NFL QBs.
You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show podcast, powered by Tito's Handmade Vodka. Try a Tito's Handmade Margarita today.
So as of today, Chris Lemonis' staff is intact. Jake Gautreaux, Scott Foxhall are staying. You know, most of the jobs are filled. And that's interesting, too. Every year you think, well, you're losing Gautreaux. I feel like that's a broken record. We've been saying that forever. And Jake Gautreaux, who Chris Lemonis called the best hitting coach in the country, his two-strike approach paid off. You know, there's a lot of bumps in the road, ups and downs throughout the season. But when they needed to rake in the postseason, they raked. And they dominated the number one college baseball program in the country. It's no longer LSU and hasn't been for some time. Vanderbilt took that away from LSU. Now, we'll see if LSU can go get it again. LSU's never going to do what they did under Skip Burtman. There's too many good teams that want it, you know, and that have the capability of winning it now compared to 25, 30, 35 plus years ago in college baseball when most programs did not care. But, you know, Vanderbilt, we were just about to drop the D word, dynasty. And then Mississippi State dominated them in the national championship series. And now MSU gets a seat at the table. You know, we always talk about VIP, 30A, beachfront property, the rarefied air, the VIP party. I'm talking about the ones that the superstars go to.
The parties you don't ever hear about.
The parties you don't ever hear about and never shut down during COVID.
Nope.
Okay? I mean, the ones that they throw, you know, in Europe and only the top few floors in New York and, you know, up in the hills and the cool places from Brentwood to Beverly Hills in L.A. and so on. And the top couple of stories in Vegas. You know where I'm going. Monaco and so on. What Mississippi State did is they punched their ticket, and now they're part of that rarefied air, the big VIP party. Hey, Blake, you know how when you see people open, they kind of let the thing down and let people in, whatever it's called?
Yeah, the rope.
Yeah, the rope.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's what happened to Mississippi State. You know, LSU's in there, and Vanderbilt's in there, and Florida's in there, and, you know, all these baseball programs that we have, Southern Cal, that we have, Texas, obviously.
South Carolina.
Yeah, we've referenced over the years, and now it's like having that Tuesday or Wednesday night Augusta National, the Masters dinner.
Yes.
And we always talk about how, I mean, there are people worth $50 billion.
They can't get in that door.
They can't get in there, never can get in there, and would stroke a multi-billion-dollar check to get in there, and it'll never happen.
And it'll never happen.
Because it is that, you know, exclusive.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Now they are in the exclusive VIP party room.
Yes. And Mississippi State was the just to stay on your golf analogy, Mississippi State was the golfer who had won all the other things. They just hadn't won the Masters. Like, that was it. They hadn't accomplished the one thing that mattered more than anything else, which was winning the green jacket, right? So in similar fashion, they had the best stuff. They had all the facilities. They had all the great buy-in, but you didn't have the one title that allowed you to call yourself elite.
And Mississippi State would try to have that conversation, and like an LSU fan would go, yeah, but you don't have the hardware.
Yeah.
Now you do.
And then you saw South Carolina and Vanderbilt kind of pass you over the last 15 years.
Right.
which had to be, and Florida even. I mean, Florida had already dabbled in it, but like even more so with what O'Sullivan's been doing.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt's played for 4, 1-2. South Carolina played for 3, 1-2. LSU played for 2, 1-1. Florida played for 2, 1-1. All in the span of the last 12 years,
about
15 years.
09.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to do something.
You had played for 1, lost 1.
Yep.
Now you played for another one and won 1.
Yep.
That's huge. You played for 2, which is big, and you actually punched your ticket.
Because you have to give yourself the opportunity at the table, right? Like, that's the biggest key. And that's what I keep going back to is, like, when you really pull out and you look at this thing from an objective third-party, like, aerial view, you go, all right, well, how many appearance, like, what, Mississippi State finally got their 12th appearance, right? How does that stack up? Well, it's not great because you've got teams like Texas who've been 37 times, right? And that's the top end, but you've got a lot of teams who have been more times than you. So when your only banner to hang was, well, we put a lot of people in our park and we've been to Omaha a lot. Well, you really hadn't even been to Omaha a lot. Right. You'd only been 8 times in 40-plus years. Now you've been 4 times in 9 years.
Right. And that's more in line of what it takes.
Well, if you're going to be national program, if you're going to be an elite program, you're in Omaha every 2 to 3 years.
Right. Yes. You are,
and then whatever happens.
Are winning a super regional.
At least 1 every 3 years, if not 2 every 3 years.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State's not going to go to everywhere. Like, this whole, 5 straight supers and 3 straight College World Series is awesome. Maybe they extend it, maybe they don't. It's not going to be forever. But when you take a year off, it can't become a 3-year hiatus. It has to be a 1-year hiatus.
Right.
That was the issue. Polk took 3, 4, 5 years off at times and then would come back and get 1. You can't do that if you're going to be comparing yourself to LSU, to Vanderbilt.
He took 6 years off from 91 to 96.
Yeah. Well, that was the big one. But there were other 3 and 4 year stints too.
Right.
And that's the point. You can't go 8 times in 50 years and be national program.
Right. Now you're part of the party. Like when Michael Jordan, Jeter, Messi, LeBron, all those guys, they go to some party in Europe or something. That's where you have punched your ticket. You have basically a card or a badge that allows you to get in anywhere.
Yeah. And it's the one thing you didn't have. You were always at the party, but you were never in the VIP room.
Yes. You were at the really cool one.
Yeah.
But there is a difference.
But there was a back room that you never got into, and now you got into it. And now the question is, now that you're in there, how do you make sure that you stay in there? Because that's the crazy part that you and I have talked about, and we'll get into this, obviously, more, and then next year.
Recruiting is such a slippery slope in every sport.
Yep.
But for the college baseball challenge of Mississippi State, Ole Miss, LSU, so on, is what? How many guys can you get to campus?
Yep.
How many guys can you recruit that are just there on the fringe that you feel really good about making it? How many guys that are top round picks that you can net out here and there, right? And then can you develop this other group that's good players? I mean, Houston Harding, nobody wanted him. He didn't have an offer out of high school. He goes to Itawamba CC, leads junior college in strikeouts, and finally gets an opportunity. And that may have been somewhat, not reluctantly, but,
things just fell the right way. Yeah.
I don't think by any stretch he got some kind of big scholarship offer from Mississippi State. And yet he comes through the JUCO ranks and he pitches, 2 amazing games down the stretch where you needed him.
Yep.
Or was it 3?
2. It was the Texas Friday night game gave you a great start, and then he gave you the start in the Tuesday Vanderbilt game.
Okay.
So,
but didn't he do something against Notre Dame?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In the
game
Supers,
3?
too. Yeah, in the Supers as well.
I mean,
no, he was great. We talked about it. What they did with every arm not named Will Bednar and Landon Sims is why you were able to wrap everything up, because they handled that bullpen so well.
Yeah. All right. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Havana Smoke Shop. 2 locations, I-55 North Frontage Road and across from Shaggy's at the Reservoir. Havana Smoke Shop for all your premium cigars. Havana Smoke Shop. Steve Palazzolo. We'll talk some NFL coming up next on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. You're listening to the Out of Bounds podcast, brought to you by the premium cigars at Havana Smoke Shop in Jackson and on the Reservoir. Havana Smoke Shop for your premium cigars.
Press the button, my friend.
The Out of Bounds Show is live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the Bank Plus studio.
Check it out.
Good morning. Welcome in. Your SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. They will get your golf game in gear before you go to Live Oaks Golf Club or Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. The number one selection of golf clubs, golf balls, and everything that you need for your game. Edwin Watts Golf Shop, County Line Road, before you hit Live Oaks Golf Club or Dancing Rabbit. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. You can watch the show right now on Facebook. Search the Out of Bounds Show. That's pretty simple. And you're listening to WRKS ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We welcome in our friend Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. Steve joins us on the Modelo guest line. Steve, when are y'all going to move Matt Corral to number one over Spencer Rattler in your quarterback rankings?
Oh, I need to take over the rankings again, I guess, so I can get in good with you guys.
Hey.
He's on our to-watch list. We'll see.
Dude, Sam Howell is not even in Matt Corral's zip code.
I don't know about that. Sam Howell's done some really nice things at UNC over the last couple of years. Corral was awesome last year. He was fantastic. I think for a lot of these guys, it's this whole, it's like the Baylor system from a couple of years ago, but on steroids for some of these guys. A lot of go balls, a lot of not a ton of NFL type of reads. It's going to be a challenge, I think, separating some of these guys this year, including Howell, including Corral. They're in awesome offenses that play to their strengths, which is great for college, but does make the projection game a little bit trickier when you're talking about the NFL.
Does Kiffin somewhat hurt Corral in that his offense and play calling, people believe, that elevates Corral's play?
Yeah, I think there's definitely elements of that. You have to just try to parse out what guys are asked to do. Like even when you saw Patrick Mahomes in college, it was like, all right, he's doing a bunch of things that probably won't translate to the NFL, and then he overcame and he turned his weaknesses into strengths. But with other guys, again, I use the Baylor example. The Baylor offense, and Lane has taken a lot of these principles. The Baylor offense was a lot of like, all right, we're running deep, we're running, it's going to be go balls and screens and hitches and simpler patterns. So it's what's the quarterback asked to do as much as how good is Lane Kiffin or how good is a play caller. Lane has been fantastic as a play caller, but also when you do that, it does take something off the quarterback's plate, which again makes it trickier to project them going forward when they have more responsibilities at the NFL level.
But you wouldn't be, or would you be, surprised if by December Matt Corral has leapfrogged several of these guys that are in front of him, so to speak, and he's kind of the talk of the town when it comes to QB play in college football?
No, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's kind of wide open. Our initial rankings, our guy Mike Renner, who does our college work, we do have Spencer Rattler number one. I anticipate him being that guy. I think he's just got special feel in the pocket, outside the pocket, touch, velocity. He's got it all. I do think beyond that, Sam Howell, I certainly have my question marks. He's currently our number two. I think Malik Willis from Liberty he's there just because his physical tools are just ridiculous. I mean, it is a Josh Allen caliber arm, but he's never played great football. Malik Willis out of Liberty. So his is more of a projection. Keaton Slovis from USC, different from all these other guys, doesn't have great tools. He's just more of a spread the ball around, throw accurately type of guy. Carson Strong from Nevada is in the mix here. So there's some names. Emory Jones could be a wild card coming out of Florida. So there's a lot of players, but I don't think any of those guys are locked in as, here's the guy to watch just behind Spencer Rattler. I think it's wide open, and if Matt Corral does have another great year, I think he could turn some heads.
For our listeners, I'm giving Palazzolo a little bit of a hard time. PFF has Matt Corral as their preseason first-team all-conference QB out of the Southeastern Conference. So they recognize that he is the dude in the best league in the country. But they really like Spencer Rattler and some other guys too, so it's all good. Steve,
I'm a little bitter because I'm a Florida fan, and he was committed to the Gators for a while. So even though had Kyle Trask break out the last couple of years, I'm a little bitter that Matt gave up on Florida a few years ago.
Yeah, but Dan dropped him for Emory Jones. That's the interesting piece of the puzzle there. Palazzolo.
Oh, is that what? I didn't know that was exactly how it happened.
So
I remember watching Corral in high school and being like, "Wow, yeah, he's a baller. He's a playmaker."
Well, all right. So at that time, all right, Mullen takes the job at Florida, okay, and immediately flies out there to Corral, and for whatever reason they don't get the warm and fuzzies. Dan flies all the way back to Gainesville or wherever, and goes all in on Emory Jones, who was committed to Urban Meyer in Ohio State, and flips him. And then Phil Longo and Matt Luke were savvy enough to walk right in the door as soon as Dan Mullen left and make sure that and solidified a commitment from Corral. Isn't that wild?
That is a good pick. Yeah, I used to. I've lost the ability to keep up with some of the recruiting trends in the stories. I didn't realize that's how it all went down. But it's such a challenge, right? As a college coach, because you can only get one or two quarterbacks per cycle, and quarterbacks hate being, one of two. You have to make a choice. You really do have to make a choice. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Emory Jones is this year, because Dan is fantastic with QBs, as is Kiffin. But we know Corral's going to
He'll have a good year.
Yeah, exactly. He'll have a good year. We know Corral will be special, one, because he's really good, two, because Kiffin's so darn good at scheming it up. But the question is, how good a year will Emory Jones have? And I can't wait to see that. So you think all right, Corral has a big year, but either way, you think Spencer Rattler out of Oklahoma has the stuff to quote unquote carry this thing from start to finish and stay number one, Steve?
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, when Rattler, when he first was recruited and came out, I remember the description being like he's a combination of Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. Just to compare him to the recent Oklahoma quarterbacks at the time, and I think he's showed that. The other thing that he has, he is so comfortable playing outside the pocket. He had 830 yards and 9 touchdowns outside the pocket, which is just absurd. That's over 220 yards more than any other quarterback just outside the pocket. He's got this comfort level outside of structure. Now, if you asked me about that 5 years ago, I'd say, hey, that's overrated. Let me see what you do inside the pocket. But and he's still good there. But I do think the way the NFL's trending, they're doing a better job of scheming it up for the quarterback within structure. But they want, and this is the trend in the NFL, they want the guy that's the natural playmaker. They want, this is how Josh Allen has broken out and become an MVP candidate. This is why the Rams have moved from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. They want to get, the NFL wants, and I think needs, guys who are just natural playmakers and just have that feel. Of course, Patrick Mahomes is the best example too. And I think Rattler has all of that. So I think he has the ability to make plays inside the pocket, outside the pocket. And I think that's going to, has the touch, has a very good arm. And accuracy. So I think Rattler has what it takes to go wire to wire here as far as the top quarterback in the class.
That's impressive. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was able to do it. It's not easy because as you and I have discussed and as you talk about all the time and y'all are doing this, you do this full time. I mean, we love to pick apart the number one guy, you know? So,
yeah, for sure.
When you're Trevor, Spencer, or so on, do you think that how long do you think it will take Trevor Lawrence to get up and running and playing at least good football in the NFL, or do you think it's going to be pretty early, like mid-September, late September type deal?
I think he'll be good right away. The two guys that I keep bringing up as past prospects that you might want to look at are Andrew Luck, of course. He's already been compared to Andrew Luck, and then Deshaun Watson. So Andrew Luck, as far as you're talking about Lawrence as the best prospect since Luck or since Elway or whatever you want to make that cutoff. But Andrew Luck's career, he started off good. He started off good right away, for a rookie in not the best situation in Indianapolis. And I don't think he really peaked until about year 5, and then he retired. But it took Andrew Luck he was a good NFL quarterback for his first 3-4 years. And then by years 5 and 6 in the league, it was like, all right, this looks and feels like the elite Andrew Luck, even though the stats never really matched it. If Trevor Lawrence had that kind of career path, I wouldn't be that I wouldn't be that surprised. If it took it takes a couple of years, he goes from good for a few years to okay, he's one of the elites. In year 3, 4, 5, whatever that is. Deshaun Watson's actually taken a similar path. Watson was very good. He was good. Last year, I thought he took a massive step forward, even though they only won 4 games. In his college career, Watson does resemble Trevor Lawrence's same system, similar stats, everything's close. So I think Lawrence will be good right away. I don't think you step in and even though he's the quote-unquote generational prospect, I don't think Trevor Lawrence steps in and looks like Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. But he comes in, good quarterback, and then at some point it kind of clicks, and before you know it, okay, Trevor Lawrence is that top 5 guy that I think people expected. I think that will happen in the coming years.
PFF.com, Pro Football Focus. He is Steve Palazzolo on the Modelo guest line. Now, I can't remember because we talked about this a couple of months ago. Who has the biggest bust rate for you that was drafted in the first round this year, Steve, QB-wise?
I think it's Trey Lance.
Okay.
I just think it's just using data. The guy dropped back 320 times in college. So even though he's young and has everything you're looking for, he doesn't look inexperienced the way he plays. He certainly has what you're looking for in a quarterback. I think as a passer, Trey Lance has the biggest bust rate. The thing that is saving him, though, is that rushing ability, right? If he has 600, 800 yards on the ground, it's tough to have a bad offense when your quarterback's doing that. It just is. It's just a different element. So I think it's Lance, just because of that, just because of the lack of experience essentially in the passing game in college.
Yeah. All right. So you've got,
and I'm saying all that, and he's in the best situation too. So like in isolation, I'd say it's Trey Lance, but man, you had the rushing ability, you had the fact that he's with Kyle Shanahan. It's going to be, he should be good, in San Francisco.
And he doesn't have to play, right?
No, I'm interested to see what happens there. I think the Niners clearly looked at Jimmy Garoppolo, who just took him to the Super Bowl. It's the same thing I said a couple minutes ago about what the NFL's doing, right? I mean, Kyle Shanahan made a decision and said, well, first off, Jimmy Garoppolo can't stay healthy, but here's this guy that took me to the Super Bowl, runs my offense really well, but I want a little bit more. Again, like the Rams did with Jared Goff, like other teams have done, saying, hey, running the system might not be good enough in today's NFL. Give me that plus the playmaking. So the fact that Shanahan's making that statement makes me think, man, he really wants Trey Lance to earlier rather than later, and doesn't want to have Jimmy Garoppolo as his starter. He certainly could, and then if Garoppolo gets hurt again, Trey Lance takes over. But I think they want to get the Trey Lance experience as soon as possible in San Francisco.
So you think they could remove Jimmy G, 4, 6, 8 games into the season? Somebody's excited about that in your house. I just said Jimmy G, and evidently one of your kids really likes Garoppolo.
I just drove 16 hours in the minivan up to Massachusetts, hanging out at my parents. I'm in my parents' basement for the next few weeks. So
wow.
There's kids running around everywhere. It's going to be fun. so forgive me. I really, there was a big deal made of Matt Nagy and Justin Fields, and when he said, no, Andy Dalton's our starter, basically saying Andy Dalton's going to start week 1 because we have a plan for Justin Fields. I think all 5 starting quarterbacks, that should be the plan, right? You drafted these guys to be the future, and you have to do what's best by them. And if you think that's sit them for 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then they come in, they learn the system a little bit, and then whenever they're ready to start, they should be starting. And I think that should be the case for all of them. Trevor Lawrence, I expect to start right away, and rightfully so. But I do think everyone else, when they're ready, you put them in there, and that should be the plan. So whether it's Trey Lance, whether it's Mac Jones, Justin Fields, you do what's best for your first-round quarterback because you got him for a reason, to see if he's the future. So every decision should be based around their development and what's best for those first-round QBs.
Okay, now we have someone on the show that argues that the NFL doesn't develop quarterbacks. That you have to – now, I know that's a little extreme, okay, but I think what he says is you can either play – they're not going to waste a lot of time. You can either play or you can't, and your window is so small that I kind of what you're referencing, they're going to roll you out, see what you got, and if you ain't good enough, they're moving on. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's the way that it should be. It's tough to have patience in today's NFL because it's not, again, the goal isn't to just find a starting quarterback. You're not just trying to find a guy who's capable of starting 16 games. There's 32 of those guys, right? There's 32 guys that are capable starters. There might be more in the league right now, actual capable starters in the NFL. If you want to differentiate yourself from the rest of the league, you have to get a top 10 guy, a top 8 guy. You have to have a guy that is pretty consistent year to year among the best in the league. And that is the cheat code in today's NFL. Having a good quarterback is 10 times more important than having a good any other position. So, yes, if a guy doesn't have it, Dwayne Haskins after a year and a half, or Mitchell Trubisky, honestly, the Bears should have moved on from Trubisky after they won, 12 games in 2018 with him. They should have said, you know what, our team is so good, but Trubisky's holding us back. We need to move on from him, even though we just won the division. That you have to make those decisions quickly because even if a guy develops into an average starting quarterback, that's not the goal, right? The goal is to continue to get that top 10 guy. Again, I go back to Arizona a couple years ago, getting, not sitting there saying, well, we invested in Josh Rosen, we got to give him 3 or 4 years. No, you don't. You just go get Kyler Murray, go get the next guy. Take your chances. So I think, yeah, the NFL. It sounds cruel, but you have to continue to move on until you get that position not just right as a starter, but really right. Until you know that you have that top 10-ish caliber guy.
This thing is going to happen soon. They're going to rip the Band-Aid off, and by about game 8, if not before this year, they may not say it, but they're going to know. You agree or disagree?
I'm sorry, who are you talking about?
Tua down at Miami.
Yeah, I think they'll know. He's the one case. It depends on how you're judging how much time a guy has, right? I mean, Tua was coming off injury. He didn't play the whole season last year. But I do think around midseason you'll have a good feel. I mean, it honestly does depend on how their offensive line comes together. He might be playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, despite the way they've invested at that position the last couple of years. It's still not great. The playmakers are fantastic, though. So, yeah, if he's not creating some big plays with Jalen Waddle in the mix now and Will Fuller, Devontae Parker, and Mike Gesicki, if that's not happening, yeah, that's a concern for Tua. And yeah, the Dolphins are one of those teams that does have to make a quick decision. They've built this really good, solid roster on both sides of the ball. They can compete. Yeah, it's becoming a very competitive AFC East. And, yeah, the Dolphins will know about Tua, I think, pretty quickly, unless that offensive line is just a disaster and it's holding them back, which is still a possibility.
You're high on Mac Jones. I'm not. So this is going to be interesting how this all plays out. I'm not sure he'll even be in the league in 3 years, but I can't wait to see what Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels can do either can or can't do with Mac Jones out of Alabama? Because
it's another interesting one. They love him already for whatever that's worth. The buzz is real in New England. I don't think A.J. McCarron was the right proxy for him. I think he's better than that. But again, there's a range of outcomes here, right? I mean, for Mac Jones to be worth it, so to speak, as the future, he needs to be at that high end of your traditional pocket passers. And let's take Brady out of it. Let's take Breeze out of it. You know, if Mac Jones is as good as, say, Phillip Rivers, who was a top 8 caliber quarterback for the majority of his career, as just one of those pure pocket passers, that's what you need for that Mac Jones pick to hit. Now, if he ends up as an Andy Dalton, all right, he could have a couple good years, but that's another spot where you might end up trying to move on. So it's, it's somewhere in that range where Mac Jones lands, and we'll see how much patience the Patriots have and just how good he is with the accuracy and decision making, if that actually does translate at the next level, or if we do see just how much Mac Jones was elevated by that incredible receiving corps at Alabama.
I think it'll be the latter. So Mac Jones, what is one tier below Andy Dalton, just off the top of your head?
I mean, if we're talking 6 or 7 years ago, I think Andy Dalton was like dead smack in the middle of starting quarterbacks.
So I think he's Andy Dalton light. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, that could be where he lands. Again, I think you have to view a lot of these projections with a range of outcomes. There's a best case scenario, there's an expected scenario, and there's a worst case scenario. There's a floor, right? But I think right now, Andy Dalton, if you put him in, he's QB 24, 25 if he's the starter. And again, I think that just explains where the NFL is at. I think they had a tough time finding Andy Daltons 7 or 8 years ago. I don't think it's tough now.
That's a great
Sam
point.
Darnold is probably Andy Dalton's quality, right? Jameis Winston is Andy Dalton plus, I think, and he wasn't even a starter last year. I think finding a quote-unquote starter, Marcus Mariota, it's not difficult. They're out there. But you need to have that top half of the league type of guy to really make a difference.
Steve Palazzolo, PFF.com, Pro Football Focus on the Modelo guest line. That was fun. All right. Well, look, man, I hope you have a good week or two or however long you're there up in New England.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'm just glad I'm not in the minivan all day right now.
Oh, I can't imagine, buddy. I mean, hey, and just make sure to get a cooler of cold beer. And are you manning the grill, or is a brother or dad? Who's manning the grill?
My dad. My dad owns the grill up here. So
Love it.
I let him work and do his thing. Yeah, I'm excited. The seafood, the grill, we got a lot planned for a couple of weeks here.
Good. Well, look, man, it's great having you back on, and enjoy your time with family, and we'll talk soon. Be good, buddy.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Steve Palazzolo, PFF.com, Pro Football Focus. By the way, Pro Football Focus has Jerrion Ealy as I just liked it on Twitter, the number 2 running back in the early 2022 NFL draft running back rankings. They have Breece Hall from Iowa State as 1, Ealy as 2, Spiller out of A is an absolute load at 3. And then Mississippi State fans, you may want to remember this, Zonovan Knight out of North Carolina State is the number 4 tailback, according to Pro Football Focus, on their early 2022 NFL draft running back, which means you'll face Jerrion Ealy and the number 4 tailback, Zonovan Knight, in Starkville. But Knight will be in game 2. Back in a second.